But real men cry, and if women can cry, men can cry too. There's nothing wrong with it. And there absolutely is something wrong with it, and I'll explain to you why. Life as a man is far more difficult than life as a woman.
एक तो भगवान ने तेरे बाल ले लिए और तू नीचे से ले रहा है। अक्ल है तुझे?
तो दर्द तो होता है, पर मर्द दिखाता नहीं। मर्द का दर्द मर्द ही जानता है। और मर्द को दर्द रुलाने वाला कौन होता है? एक ही औरत रहती है, मर्द को रुलाने वाला।
Time with this woman is pure because he treats her more like his daughter rather than his mother.
स्ट्रॉन्ग हार्टेड होना चाहिए, मतलब क्योंकि गर्ल्स लोग का हार्ट ज़्यादा सॉफ्ट होता है। हमें किसी को प्रूव नहीं करना है कि क्या मर्दान की है, पावर होता है। इट्स डिफरेंट फ्रॉम फीमेल।
ईमानदार हो,
असली मर्द ईमानदार होता है। जी जी।
मेरे नजर में सर मर्द वो होता है जिसे दर्द नहीं होता है,
जिसे दर्द नहीं होता है।
I decided to center my last design project on something that had been on my mind for a while, the perception of men and masculinity. Throughout my time here, it is clear that many of my friends who were women had a lot of bad experiences and views and opinions on men, and up to now I don't think I've really been able to understand them. At first my ego couldn't help but feel hurt when I would hear so many negative opinions and experiences about men. But over time I learned to listen without that filter, and I could start to make sense of things, and eventually with more exposure I started to understand myself and the other men around me more deeply. The performance of masculinity has hands in every part of our experiences and in all sections of society. In this video I want to present my journey and self-reflection, in specifically the effects of masculinity on my ability, or rather inability, to deal with emotions. It's hard to make a clear picture of something as broad and abstract as masculinity, especially in a country as diverse as India. But for the sake of this project, I did go through a lot of different people and voices talking about things like patriarchy and masculinity. And there are more people who speak about this than I realized. More men that speak about this than I realized, I should say. But before I get into that, I should introduce myself. I'm Aniket. And I grew up in a lot of places. So I lived in Kochi from 7th to 12th grade. But before that, I was born in the US, and I moved around from US to India and then back. So in 2nd grade, I came to Bangalore, and then I went back to the US in 5th and 6th, and then I came back to Kochi. And throughout, my identity has been very all over the place, very strange. I don't know. Being born in the US and looking Indian definitely put me in a position where some people, were weird about me. I don't really know how else to put it. I did write an essay about this, so you will see that in the description when this published. While I was in Kochi, I started to get a lot more comfortable with myself, and I came to college and I started talking to, I think, more women than men, and it gave me a lot of perspective that I wasn't used to, and kind of set me on this journey of deconstructing my masculinity and growing as a human in general. A major part of that journey was learning how to express myself and be vulnerable about my feelings when needed. And looking at this messy picture of masculinity and men now, I kind of feel like it is something that is a key ingredient that is missing from the way boys are socialized. And I think it's a good place to start dissecting this topic. What is a good man? You get different answers from different people, but I think that most men, can't speak for everyone, most men live their life according to a character that they feel is the best man they can be, or at least try to live like that. And through their childhood and growing up as boys, you're basically learning what is that character. You're experiences and everything kind of inform you and what you grow up to become. And depending on your environment, you learn different things. From my childhood, I went from kind of being excluded to eventually learning how to fit in a bit better. And I found humor was a very powerful tool for that. Whether it was self-deprecating or poking fun at others or being witty in general or whatever you would call wit at the school level. It always had people looking up to that. It was something like respected, I guess you could say. But humor always has a victim. And in school, it's usually whoever is at the bottom of the social hierarchy for whatever reason. So I went from being like the butt of a lot of jokes to eventually learning to hold back any pain from people making jokes about me and retorting with my own jokes. Humor was like a tool of war between boys in school. And the more insensitive you were and the better or more witty you were at verbally abusing other people, you were more like looked up to, I guess. And most social groups were kind of built around interests and backgrounds and stuff like that. But I noticed that a lot of the popular groups always had this insensitive brand of humor. And all this basically just trained boys to be insensitive and good at verbal abuse, which doesn't translate well when you grow up. As a kid that suppressed my emotions, I started losing touch with other people. I couldn't relate to other people. I started feeling detached and depressed and lonely without realizing that I was depressed because I was suppressing those emotions. But eventually I was lucky to find a way out of that. But I don't think that's the case with everyone, and it's just a sad, inhuman way of living. I realized it was important to recognize your emotions not as a flaw but as a feature that help you connect with other people and your environment. And the first step to do that was to feel your emotions, and that meant allowing yourself to shout or scream or cry or whatever in a way that didn't harm other people and wasn't reactionary. I started to write out my thoughts and my feelings, and that journaling basically helped in the moment by being like a release of the emotions, and also it helped me in learning to articulate what I'm feeling. After a while, as I got used to writing emotions and feelings, I started to notice that a lot of my negative emotions didn't come from the outside environment but from myself. As I kept writing, I started rediscovering past experiences that kind of I didn't realize still bothered me. And I started feeling again that social isolation and the fear of other people and stuff like that. At the same time, I discovered a very good content creator called Dr. K. Healthy Gamer is their YouTube. I think they stream also.
And she sees a dog the next day, and then she starts to cry. Because when she sees that dog, all of that fear, which had lived within her the day before, reemerges. And she kind of had this traumatic experience, right? That's the way that we think about trauma.
Once I started getting better at handling my emotions, my view of other people shifted. They started to become these complex mosaics of past experience and stories that I wanted to connect with and share with. And I got better at talking to people, and I enjoyed talking to people on a personal level. And I guess in short, I was getting in touch with the humanity that I had lost by being this hyper masculine boy, I guess. After I started getting better at talking to people and understanding all of this, the skill kind of attracted people who needed to let things out I guess I became like a therapist friend. And I don't think I attracted these people necessarily, but maybe I just enjoyed talking this way, and I kind of led conversations with people on a personal level and uncovering things with other people. And again, therapist friend. I was able to support a lot of people when they were dealing with problems, and it was cathartic for them, and it felt really nice. But after a while, I started to notice it was very one-sided, because I was very uncomfortable sharing myself. And yeah, it was scary. Knowing how to express myself in a way people would understand was one thing, where journaling and learning to articulate kind of helped. But on top of that, there was the fear of putting myself in that position of sharing things in the first place. There were points where I felt like I could say what I wanted to say, in the sense I knew what I wanted to say, I knew what I was feeling, but the words just wouldn't come out. I couldn't have people hear that stuff about me. And eventually I learned that one tool that helped me with this is like I would write, right? And instead of trying to say what I was writing, I would just show what I had written to people. I remember one of the first times I did this, the person I showed it to started reading it aloud, and I started getting very embarrassed. I had to tell them to stop. But yeah, slowly I started doing this a bit more with people, and I got more comfortable sharing things. I realized that at the core of this fear of sharing myself was a fear of vulnerability. It's all ego, basically. My past experiences kind of taught me that being vulnerable was a weakness, and that it's something that people will take advantage of. And that's kind of a big problem that I see with a lot of people, and that is the main point that I want to point out in this video.
And I realized that men are seen as part of the problem by all concerned, which is right. Men's attitude are part of the problem. But can we think of a solution without involving men? We may empower women. We may have the best laws in our country. We may ask for stricter punishment, but if the attitude in the law enforcing agencies, the men in uniform, if it is not there, then those things will remain on paper.